Yes, it is. Ooh, freezing in here.
Uh-oh, not good. That's why I thought I would have when I got your email first. Yeah, I know I had you right away before. See, we print the list in green sheet. I'll print that list this morning. Okay. But again, the chair is gonna say, the chair.
Are there extra speaker cards that you need for the public or? No? Oh, okay. Wish I would have got them out. It's okay. I got them. But they've all got theirs?
Yeah, but I stopped. I was, oh, here.
We can if we have it.
They did, well, when I came in earlier, the guy was in here and said he's going to keep an extra one. I get 25.
Yeah, yeah. So what's gonna happen is once I put yours into the first one, here's the first,
want to start the meeting.
9:31, clock's fast. It's all right,
Yeah,
it's the best.
everyone's fast, except you.
Good morning, everyone, welcome. Call this meeting to order. As I see, we have quorum. Are there any declarations of interest? Seeing none, I'll take a motion to confirm the minutes from September 6, 2017, moved by Councillor Ford. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Are there any petitions at this time?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Palacio.
Palacio here. I received a petition with about over 150 signatures, and as it relates to the Blood Brothers, and this has to do with a function on October 28th, so I'll be speaking to that. So I'd like to introduce this motion as it relates to that. Thank you.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. We'll now go, Council,
I think I got one.
1 second, sorry.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I have,
1 second, Councilor,
Yes.
sorry. We have a petition, Councillor Palacio, 2 petitions, Councillor Palacio?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And there is another one.
But Councillor Palacio, so let's just start with the first. What's the first one, the title of the first one?
The first one is for the Blood Brothers Brewery for
Okay.
165 Gary Avenue.
Okay, all in favor, accept the petitions? Opposed? Carried.
It's for the
Second one?
Halloween. The second one is for the Keele Sundown for 165 Gary Avenue as well.
And how many names?
It's 3 pages, approximately 100.
All in favor, accepting the petitions? Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Okay, Deputy, sorry, Councillor Crisanti,
you're right the first time. No.
Councillor Crisanti, point of order.
Point of order. I believe I have a petition here in favor of a fence exemption for 32 Allhart Drive, 7 signatures. So I'll just register that, and we'll see how that goes when the time comes up.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. We'll now go through the items. Councillor Campbell, you ready? I'm ready. Okay, just want to make sure. 25.1, final report, 4208, 4210, and 4214 Dundas Street West. Plan of a subdivision application. We have speakers at 10 o'clock. 25.2, final report, 1780 Lawrence Avenue West, zoning bylaw amendment and plan for subdivision applications. We have speakers at 10. 25.3, preliminary report, 3429 Bloor Street West, official plan and zoning bylaw amendment application. Councillor DeChano is not here, but I believe Councillor Ford is taking care of this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Like to have a minor amendment to this item, expanding the delivery area of the notice of the community meeting to 250 meters.
So recommend number 2, we're expanding to 250 instead of 120. Motion's on the screen. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item is amended. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. EY 25.4, preliminary report, 406, 410 Keele Street, official plan and zoning bylaw amendment application. Councillor Doucette.
I have an amendment as well. We're changing it to 240 meters plus. I'm putting in a map to show the streets which must be covered for the notice. Anyone wants to see, it's all been handed in, it's all wonderful, at the cost of the proponent.
That was very good. Got it? Motion on the screen. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Clause amended. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 25.5, non-residential demolition application, 3484 Dundas Street West. Councillor Doucette.
So I will be moving item 3, which approves the application to demolish these 2 one-story buildings, and they have to do A, B, and C. And I must just quickly add, I am so happy these buildings are coming down. They're an eyesore, and they're a safety issue.
If you don't mind holding the item down, I just have questions on that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
EY 25.6, front yard parking appeal, 153 Blackthorn Avenue. Councillor Palacio with speakers at 10:15. 25.7, front yard parking appeal, 299 Kane Avenue. We have speakers at 10:15. 25.8, front yard parking appeal, 33 Ravenel Street. We have speakers at 10:30. 25.9, front yard parking appeal, 2 Yarrow Road. We have speakers at 10:30. 25.10, application for fence exemption, 65 Princeton Road. Of speakers at 10:45. 2511, application for fence exemption, 21 Yorkley Avenue, speakers at 10:45. 25.12, application for fence exemption, 32 Alhart Drive, speakers at 10:45. Application for fence exemption, 40 Rakeley Court, speakers at 11. 2514, application for fence exemption, 611 McRoberts Avenue, speakers at 11. 2515, fence exemption, 34 Sir Williams Lane, speakers at 11. 2516, application for fence exemption, 22 Summerfield Crescent, speakers 11:15. 2517, permanent closure of the untraveled west branch of Caledonia Park Road existing between 1601 and 1613 St. Clair Avenue West. Are there any speakers to the item on 2517? Permanent closure of untraveled west branch Caledonia Park Road existing between 1601 and 1613 St. Clair. Seeing none, Councillor Palacio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to move the recommendations that City Council adopt the staff recommendations as noted in the report.
Councillor Palacio is moving the staff recommendations. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. EY 25.18, all-way stop control, Olive Wood Road and Judge Road. Councillor Ford on behalf of Councillor DeChano.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move staff recommendations.
Councillor Ford's moving the staff recommendations. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. EY 25.20, speed limit amendment, Battersea. Sorry, Councillor Holiday, sticky fingers here. 2519, speed limit amendment, Baskerville Crescent. Councillor Holiday.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move the staff recommendations in the report.
Councillor Holly's moving the staff recommendations. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 2520, speed limit amendment, Battersea Crescent. Councillor DeGiorgio. Councillor DeGiorgio moves the staff recommendations. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 2521, speed limit reduction, Morningside Avenue. Reduction. Councillor Doucette, you move the reduction?
I will move the reduction on the speed. Thank you very much. Move staff recommendations.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councillor Campbell, don't start. 25.22, extension of permanent parking hours, 22nd Street. Councillor Grisanti, can you move that's in my ward for me, please?
I'll move staff recommendation.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 2523, parking regulation amendment, Airview Road in Ward 2. Councillor Ford.
Moving staff recommendations.
Councillor Ford moves the staff recommendations. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 2524, parking regulation amendments, Ascot Avenue, Earls Court Avenue. Councillor Palacio.
I'd like to move the staff recommendations with a huge thank you to city staff.
Councillor Palacio moves the staff recommendations with a thanks to staff. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 2525, parking regulation amendment, Irving Road. Councillor DeGiorgio. Councillor George moves the staff recommendations. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 2526, installation removal of on-street accessible parking spaces, Double York District, September 2017, delegated in wards 11, 13, 17. Councillor Nunziata.
I'll move the staff recommendation.
Councillor Nunziata moves the staff recommendations. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 2527, construction and staging area on Ulster Street at 1771 St. Clair Avenue West. Councillor Palacio.
Adopt the staff recommendations as well.
Councillor Palacio moves the staff recommendations. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 2528, proposed sidewalk on Tabor Road. Councillor Ford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For this item, I'm going to be moving deferral for one cycle to have further conversations with transportation.
Okay, so deferral to next day. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Good sandwiches there.
Really? Let's go. 2529, request for transportation study for a traffic light on Brown's Line. I'll hold that down in my name. 2530, traffic calming poll results, Longborough Avenue. Councillor DeGiorgio. 2531, traffic calming pole results, Beverly Hills Drive between Jane Street and Wilson Avenue. Councilor Mamalidi. We also have speakers at 9:45, so we'll just hold that down. EY 25.32, traffic calming pole results, Redberry Parkway between Lawrence Avenue West and North Park Drive. Councilor Palacio. 2532, traffic calming pole results, Redberry Parkway. Oh, sorry, Councilor DeGiorgio.
Chairman, hold that one as well. Yeah, the next one is mine as well.
25.33, traffic calming pole results, Rustic Road between Heisel Road and Culford Road. Councilor DeGiorgio.
I'd like to defer that one, Mr. Chairman, for one cycle.
Councilor DeGiorgio moved deferral to next day on 25.33. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 2534, maintenance of Genock Street Park Pond. I'd like to hold that in my name. 2535, appointments to business improvement area boards of management in wards 5, 6, 11, and 17. Councilor Nunziata.
I'll move it.
With the staff recommendations, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. 2536, endorsement of events for liquor licensing purposes in Ward 6 and 17. Councilor Palacio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a motion, and I will ask the clerk to display it. Motion number 1. It's, I will read it, that the Etobicoke Community Council, per 1, advise the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario that it has no objection to the following events, noting that there could be issues related to security, noise, public drunkenness, loitering, loud music, and overseeing. A, Blood Brothers Brewery, 165 Gary Avenue, October 28, 2017, that's on Halloween. And B, Tequila Sundown, 165 Gary Avenue, October 31st, 2017. Number 2, request the district manager of municipal licensing standards, Etobicoke, your district, to monitor this location during the above noted venue days for loud noise complaints that could impact the local residential community. Members of council, I have worked with city staff on this one, and I also consulted with the community, and that was, I had 2 petitions.
Okay, the motion's on the screen.
Thank
All
you.
in favor of the amendment, all in favor? Opposed, carried. Clause amended, all in favor? Opposed, carried. Okay, just gonna do a quick housekeeping item here. Gonna come back to Councilor Mamali's ward, 25.31, traffic calming pole well, a second. Traffic calming pole results, Beverly Hills Drive between Jane Street and Wilson Avenue. Are there any speakers on this item? Beverly Hills between Jane Street and Wilson Avenue, any speakers? Seeing none, Councilor Mamalidi.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Can I get staff to the floor?
Oh, Councilor Mamalidi, no, you're gonna hold it? I got other stuff I gotta do, so you're gonna hold this?
Oh, I'd like to move a motion. I want everyone to know there's only 2 residents on that street.
Okay, we're just gonna hold it down.
So
Councilor
I'd like to just move the speed humps. There's also a school there, yeah. I mean, it's plain and simple, right?
So you wanna, what do you wanna move? I'm sorry,
Will you
Councilor Mamalidi,
support it too?
what are you doing?
Just moving the speed hump request. That's it.
So it's the recommendation not to improve it, installing.
I'll move the staff recommendations.
So the alternate. So I just moved something, and Councilor
Okay, I think we're
beside me wants to up me on something.
gonna have to hold this down.
Well, just vote for it. I'm moving a motion, so is he. Just vote for it.
Okay, Councilor Mamalidi striking with the staff recommendations and motion to approve. All in favor? Oh, sorry, sorry. Hold on. Councilor Mamalidi striking with the staff recommendations and moving approval of the speed humps.
Right.
Councilor Campbell's moving approval of the staff recommendations. Councilor Mamalidi's motion goes first. All in favor of Councilor Mamalidi's motion? All in favor? Opposed?
Of course.
That carries. Okay, that was easy. All right. Okay, the new business items, 2537, parking and streetscape project on Lakeshore Boulevard West between 36th and 37th Street. Everyone read it? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. What was that? Are they not adding? They're- Okay, sorry. Frank, what are you laughing at? Okay, EY 25.37, parking and streetscape project on Lakeshore Boulevard West between 36th Street and 37th Street. EY 25.38, northbound left turn, advanced feature, St. Clair Avenue West and Old Stockyards Road, Guns Road. 25.39, traffic concerns at Aline Avenue. 2540, status report 2522, 2542 Keele Street, draft plan of standard condominium application. And that's it. So motion to put them on the agenda.
No, hold on. I do have another communication that's with the clerk as it relates to the St. Clair Gardens BIA in terms of proactive enforcement.
Okay, so
measures.
Councilor Palacio, could you please have that circulated to the clerks, and we'll deal with that later. So motion to add them to the agenda, all in favor? Moved by Councilor Doucette, all in favor, opposed, carried. 2537, parking and streetscape project on Lakeshore Boulevard West between 36th and 37th Street, all in favor? Opposed, carried. EY 25.38, northbound left turn advance feature St. Clair Avenue West and Old Stockyards Road, Guns Road. Councilor Nunziata.
Yeah. I'd like to move the recommendation, but what I want to say that I want it installed. Because it's been 5 years. You agree? Okay.
Okay, hold on. Are we gonna hold this down, or are you moving the staff recommendations?
Okay.
Moving the
Okay,
staff
I'll vote.
recommendations?
Well, it's not, it's my recommendation.
Okay, well, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, moving the recommendations. All in favor?
Yeah.
Opposed? Carried. 2539, Eileen Avenue, Councilor DeGiorgio. Of your recommendations, all in favor? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 2540, status report, 2522, 2542 Keele Street, draft plan and standard condominium application. Councilor DeGiorgio. Hold.
Okay, next,
Okay, moving right along.
2531.
Our first item is 2531, traffic calming pole results, Beverly Hills Drive between Jane Street and Wilson Avenue. Did we just do that? We just did that one, okay. There you go, Councilor Mammoliti, love it. 25.1 is our first item. Final report, 4208, 4210, and 4214 Dundas Street West. Are any speakers on the item? Oh, we're too early. 10 a.m., another 10 minutes, okay? No, hang on, 1 second, relax. Hang on, guys. Hold on.
So,
EY 25.5, non-resident demolition application 3484 Dundas Street West. Councilor Doucette, you held that?
Councillor Nunziata has a question, and then I'm moving recommendation 3.
Okay, so questions of staff, Councilor Nunziata?
okay, just question to staff on this one. Just, Councillor Doucette, who's the staff?
Tim over here, Francis, over here.
Oh, okay. So this site, I know it's in Councillor Doucette's ward, but that building has been vacant for at least over 20 years. Yeah, 2 buildings, and it's a real eyesore. It's been fenced off with the high weeds and garbage. So with recommendation 3 that Councillor Doucette is moving, will that, all that, the rubble, the high weeds, the fencing, will that all be removed? Will there be a beautification? Because it is on the main street on Dundas, and so I just wanted to know exactly what would happen to that property, because it has been an eyesore for over 20 years.
Through the chair, no. So if you approve or recommend to council, because it still has to go to city council, recommendation number 3, that's just straight demolition and then rubble cleanup. And that's it. So you could be left with an unknown for many years, which is what we've kind of heard, but can't confirm.
So there's nothing then we can do to move to, because it could be like that for another 20 years, right?
It could be. So
And
really,
it-
the
yeah.
only way is to approve it with a beautification aspect of it,
They won't do it?
right? So
I'm told by the council they won't do it, but you can't force anybody to do it.
no, no.
Okay, any further questions of staff? Seeing none. Councillor Doucette.
So very quickly, I am moving item 3. The reason is I did look at item 2, recommendation 2, but my understanding is we can't make anyone do anything. And I believe there's a new owner of this property, and item 3 will get those big holes filled in, which I think are dangerous, where the tanks used to be. It will remove the 2 ugly buildings, which I know people have visited, and we have had the fire department out too. So it's not perfect, but I feel at least it'll make the property safer, and we will keep on top of them with the garbage as we have been doing at least for the last 7 years I've been around.
Okay. Councillor Doucette's motion's on the screen. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Clause amendment. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving right along. EY 25.29, request for transportation study and traffic light on Brown's Line. I held the item. It's my ward, so I'll have the chair to Councillor Crisanti. Had it right the first time. Can I ask staff to the floor for just a couple of quick questions?
Staff? 29.
Good morning, Mark. So I'm asking for a request for transportation so between Brown's Line and Horn. I know you know the area very well. We had there's been a couple of deaths on Brown's Line the last couple of years on that curve, correct? People are having high rate of speed?
That's correct. There was a fatal last year in 2016, January 2016. There was one this year in January.
So they're traveling at high rates of speed?
Speed was identified in factor in these collisions,
So
yes.
on the one side, we have an industrial pocket of the city, which, big 53-foot trailers, trucks traveling on that road. Plus, we have the Mississauga buses, the TTC, and people traveling to go to a pretty busy stretch of lane there, right?
That's correct.
And we also have a crosswalk. What are those crosswalks called? Those when you kind of cross on the one side and you get the safety and you got to wait again to go across.
They're called split PXOs.
Those split PXO. And we've had a number of collisions of that split PXO vehicles hitting the island. Is that correct?
Well, we have one split PXO, and I believe that's at Woodbury. At Woodbury, and there's another one we just call a refuge island. And that's at Jellicoe.
And there's been a number of cars hit that island, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So I'm asking for study to come back. You believe this is in order to ask for this to come back?
Yep.
Great. Those are my questions. Thank you. Be at the chair.
Any other questions of staff? No? Speakers?
Right here. Okay, thank you. I'm going to move the staff, my recommendation to request transportation to undertake a traffic study at Brown's Line between Horner Avenue, Lakeshore Boulevard West to determine if traffic light is warranted. I've had a number of complaints from the community just recently. It's just getting crazy down there. We had a death down on the corner as you traveled south on Brown's Line. People are trying to get across to the bus, and they're taking their lives on their own. So I'm asking for this to come back with a recommendation, hopefully for a light at some point between Horner Avenue and before the curve. So with that, I'll move my recommendations.
All right, so Councillor Grimes is moving the recommendations. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Thank you, Councillor Crisanti.
Back to you.
EY 25.30, traffic calming poll results, Longborough Avenue. Councillor DeGiorgio, you held the item.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to move approval of the traffic calming measures. So the alternate recommendation.
Moving the alternate recommendations. You moving the alternate on Longborough.
This is number 30.
Number 30. Questions of staff? Councillor DeGiorgio's moving the alt recommendations on the screen. All in favor? Opposed?
Opposed.
Councillor Campbell and Councillor Holly? That carries. Did you want to record a vote, Councillor Campbell? Did you want to record a vote? All in favor, recorded vote. Councillor DeGiorgio. Councillor Doucette. Councillor Palacio. Councillor Nunziata. Councillor Crisanti. Councillor Grimes. Councillor Mamalidi. Councillor Ford. Opposed? Councillor Doucette, Councillor Campbell, and Councillor Holliday. Does that work? That carries. Thank you.
Just like to remind members.
No,
of
point of
council-
order, Councillor DeGiorgio?
On a point of order. I'll deal with it in item 32.
Okay.
That's next.
EY 25.32.
I would just like.
Traffic calming poll results, Redbury Parkway between Lawrence Avenue West and North Park Drive. Councillor DeGiorgio held the item.
Similarly here, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move adoption of the alternate recommendations. And I would remind members that the criteria that we use is the 50%. We have to have 50% of those people polled respond. And I believe 60% of the respondents have to be in favor, which translates in 30% of all the people polled have to be in favor. And I think that in most cases, when I move approval, that particular condition that is a combination of the two conditions is the condition that should prevail. So I move the recommendations here on the premise that 30% of the respondents are in favor.
Thank you. Any further speakers? Seeing none, Councilor George, motion's on the screen. All in favor? All in favor? Councilor Palacio? Opposed? That carries. EY 25.34, maintenance of Jean Augustine Park Pond. I haven't got time to, I'll just come back to that. It's 10 o'clock, almost here, 9 o'clock here. 3 more minutes. Huh? 33? 25.1. We can go now? Okay, EY 25.1, final report, 4208, 4210, 4214 Dundas Street West, plan of a subdivision application. Are there any speakers on this item? Any speakers? Good morning, welcome, sir. Please state your name, and you have 5 minutes.
Good morning. My name is Peter Smith. I'm a partner with Bousfields. We're the planners for the applicant. I'll be very brief. First of all, I just want to say that we support the staff recommendation and the draft plan conditions. The only reason I'm speaking today is I understand that there are some emails that have been received by community councils from some area residents objecting to approval of the plan of subdivision, and I just want to address those. So with respect, those emails that we have reviewed have nothing to do with the plan of subdivision. The objections that are stated relate to height and density, and those matters were matters that were settled through the official plan amendment and rezoning applications. I've been involved from the outset. It was a 3-year process, a very, very long process that we went through on the official plan amendment and rezoning. There was lots of community consultation. In the end, the official plan amendment and rezoning were adopted by council this past April. There were no appeals. Those planning instruments are now in full force in effect. And so all that we're dealing with today is the plan of subdivision, which involves the creation of the blocks as a matter of implementation of the rezoning for the public road, for the public park on site, and also for the conveyance of valley lands to the Conservation Authority. It has nothing to do with height and density, and accordingly, we would ask that the committee not take those comments into consideration in terms of dealing with the matter that's in front of it today. And I would respectfully request, therefore, that the Community Council adopt the staff recommendations that are in front of it. Thanks very much. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Any questions? Councillor Holiday, question.
Morning, thank you for speaking to us. I know the site really well. I worked on that property for many years when I was younger, and I know that the entrance and exit was tough at certain times of the day. Can you tell me a little bit about some of the traffic improvements that you are offering to ensure that people can get in and out of that site safely?
Yes, the primary improvement that came out of the review process was the creation of a new public road that will run along the west boundary of the subject site. And that proposal actually came out of the Dundas Street West Avenue study that was actually adopted back in 2006. So that will actually provide consolidated access to the subject site, as well as over time, if the plaza to the west, as well as those additional commercial properties, redevelop a loop road that would actually extend through those properties and then back out to Dundas Street West. There are also a number of detailed recommendations that are secured through some of the conditions of draft plan approval in terms of just handling the design of the intersection of that road with Dundas Street West.
Are there any traffic lights planned for those intersections?
Not at this time, but that possibility can be looked at again in the future.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Any further speakers to the item? Seeing none, questions of staff? Seeing none, Councillor Campbell. Councillor Campbell, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll move the staff recommendation. This went through, as the deputy said, a long process with community consultation. The original proposal was for more height of the building at the back. The developer came back, reduced the height of the building by 5 stories. City planning said modify it, and the final outcome was 21 stories. But the building actually has been sold. The building units have been sold out. It's very popular. There's going to be an 8-story seniors residence on the front. There's townhouses, so it's all in all, I think, a very good development for Ward 4. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further speakers to the item? Seeing none, Councillor Campbell's moving the staff recommendations on 25.1. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. EY 25.2, final report, 1780 Lawrence Avenue West, zoning bylaw amendment and plan of subdivision application. Are there any speakers on the item? Any speakers on the item? Seeing none, questions of staff? Questions of staff?
We've had a number of meetings, Mr. Chairman. So
Councillor
one question.
Giorgio, questions of staff?
Yeah. Just to confirm, Anthony, on the recommendations with respect to parking, that each particular unit has a minimum of 1 parking space, correct?
That's right. Well, actually 2. Each
Yeah,
unit will
that's
have
what
one
I
in the
wanted to
garage and
confirm.
one in the driveway.
Right, 1 in the garage, 1 in the...
As a minimum, the 2 detached houses actually have 3 parking spaces.
Right, and there is no provision for visitor parking anywhere?
There is no provision for visitor parking, but there will be visitor parking available on the street, on the new public streets.
On the new public streets that we assume once the development is...
That's right.
Okay, so interior on the site.
That's right.
Thank you.
Questions of staff? Councillor Nunziata?
Yeah, just a staff, is this the site where the church is?
No, it's a former school site.
Across the street from the church.
It's across the street from the church.
On the north side.
But there's a church on the north side too.
Oh,
Not
yeah,
the
that's
Catholic,
right, but
yeah.
it's
Is
on
that
the other side of the street.
the other side? Is that part of the development?
No.
Oh, it's not part of the
It's
development.
entirely the former school site,
Just entirely the school?
just the school site.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none, I have a final question for you, Anthony. I heard a nasty rumor that you may be retiring soon. Is that correct?
Not quite, but I am leaving the city as of next week.
Oh. Recorded vote. All in favor? Opposed?
I don't see any hand,
I don't know about that.
That's right.
Anyway, wish you,
Could have been a black one, right?
Anthony, wish you nothing but the best, and then to kind of take the movie off, take the meeting offline, Councillor Palacio has a point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's with a tremendous sense of sadness, literally speaking, that I'm going to say a few words, and at the same time, I want to commend and congratulate you, and this on behalf of residents Ward 17. And I really want to thank you for the good work, the tremendous amount of effort, your level of commitment, without compromising ever the planning process in any way. But your vision in terms of good planning has been appreciated so much by a number of developments, especially the biggest development that we had, the Davenport Village, which is an incremental phasing that we have with hundreds and thousands of units there, one of the best communities in City of Toronto. During the last 5 years, yes, you have put a lot of effort and a tremendous sense of commitment. I'm going to miss you a lot. I know the community, especially the residents on the Davenport Village, they're going to miss you a lot. Thank you so much for putting your heart and your soul into it, for being so professional, for being so great. One of the best planners I ever met.
Okay, thank you, Councillor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
really
Councillor
appreciate the
Palacio. And
compliments.
Anthony, on behalf of the Community Council, wish you nothing but the best, and you should get a medal from from Neil for having to work with Councilor Palacio.
Thank
You very much. Okay, seeing no further questions of staff, are there any speakers? Frank DeGiorgio, Councilor DeGiorgio.
I think, Mr. Mayor,
I like that.
Chairman.
Got a ring to it. Yes.
I was just reacting to his ambition.
It's my wife on the phone. What's going on?
Mr. Chairman, I will move adoption of the staff recommendations with the following amendment, that if I've discussed the amendment with the applicant, there may be some minor tweaks necessary, and in that case, it can be done, I believe, prior to council, so if you can put up that amendment. Oh, did you not get it, Mr. Bartlett?
Do we have it? Set it down. Okay, we're going to stand this down.
We can
Councilor
stand it
Georgiou,
down.
till we find the amendment, so we're going to stand that down for a couple of seconds. We'll come right back to it. We'll go on to 25.6, front yard parking appeal, 153 Blackthorn Avenue. I'm a little bit early for that. So I guess I'm good for mine now? Okay, so pass the chair to Councilor Santi, go back to the pond, number 34. 25.34, maintenance of the Jean Augustine Park Pond. I'll pass the chair to Councilor Santi.
Okay, questions of staff?
Yes.
34.
Nick, can you answer questions on the Jean Augustine Pond, or
Trying to talk Anthony out of.
maintenance 25.34, maintenance of the Jean Augustine Park Pond? Can you answer questions on that?
I can't, no, I'd have to probably get Donna's group involved. Did you want to hold that?
Could we hold it down till we're ready for that?
That's item
25.34. I think I saw Dave Nasala here earlier, but.
0.34, I'll get Dave over here right
I
away.
think I saw him
I
here.
didn't
Okay,
realize we jumped
thank
to
you.
that.
So I'll take the chair back. So I think we are up to date at ending the timed items, right? Rosemary? All right, so we're going to take a 5-minute recess.
Should say, Travis coming back.
Huh?
Thank Travis. Was he here? I don't know, tell him to come back.
Well, it's not here. Okay, can I get councilors back to the chamber for quorum? We start the meeting. Okay, Councilor Doucette, me and you, let's do it. Can I get councilors back to the chamber? Councilor DeGiorgio, Councilor Palacio, Councilor Nunziata, Councilor Grisanti, Councilor Holliday. Councilor Ford, there he is, see? He listens. One, two, three, four, five. One more. Councilor DeGiorgio, Councilor Nunziata, Councilor Grisanti. We need you for quorum. Oh, there he is. Oh, there they come.
Hey, Brad, I asked Mike to keep it down downstairs.
Okay, we have quorum. Calls meeting back to order. I had a chance to talk to staff over the break, so 25.34, maintenance of the Jean Augustine Park Pond. I'm gonna move the recommendations before us. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, back to 25.2, final report, 1780 Lawrence Avenue West, zoning bylaw amendment and plan of subdivision application. Are there any speakers on this item? 1780 Lawrence Avenue West, no speakers. Bring it to committee. Questions of staff? Seeing none, Councilor DeGiorgio.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, as I said earlier, I've got a motion to amend, excuse me, move the adoption of the recommendation subject to an amendment that I think is up there. And as I said earlier, it may need to be tweaked a little bit in my conversations with staff, in which case we can.
This one?
It's not very clear. Most of it is technical.
Councilor DeGiorgio, I'm sorry, we have to circulate this. We can't read that.
Okay.
Please. So, you have that, guys? Okay, the clerk's got, they're gonna recirculate. I'm sorry. We'll just hold it down, okay?
All righty.
All right, 25.6, front yard parking appeal, 153 Blackthorn Avenue. And Councilor Palazzo's not here. Councilor Palazzo?
Move staff recommendation?
Oh, did we do that, didn't we?
The meeting.
We're on 7, right? Okay, well, he's not here, so, okay, any speakers on the item at the 153 Blackthorn Avenue? Okay, I'm gonna hold it down until he gets back, okay? 25.7, front yard parking appeal, 299 Kane Avenue. Are there speakers on Kane Avenue? Oh, here he is. Councilor Palazzo, we were dealing with 25.6, front yard parking appeal, 153 Blackthorn Avenue. I called for speakers, no speakers. A constituent said you're going to speak on his behalf. Are there any questions of staff?
No.
Seeing none, Councilor Palazzo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First and foremost, I want to thank city staff actually for being so proactive. Every time that there is an application, usually I have side meetings with them. Just
Do you have a motion?
And the property owners. Yes, I would like to move the alternate recommendations. And there are 4 of them. Yeah, so my huge thanks to city staff, and one of the things that caught my attention more than anything else in terms of the municipal code and the zoning provisions is in terms of mitigating the stormwater runoffs within that property. So a lot of good work is taking place there, and in terms of beautification of the property as well. So as it relates to community consultation, and there is about 76% of residents and street that are in favor of it. And I'm all for this application. Hopefully I can have your support. Thank you.
Okay, the motion's on the screen. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 25.7, front yard parking appeal, 299 Kane Avenue. Any speakers on Kane Avenue? Kane Avenue, seeing none. Councilor DeGiorgio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I will move adoption of the alternate recommendations with one little direction to staff. In Part 4, it talks about restoration of some of the area as landscaping, and I think if you look at, on page 6 of 7, there's a door at the bottom of, or at the driveway. No, there's a door. And it's pretty hard for me to imagine that we're going to put landscaping or greenery in front of a door. So, subject to the General Manager of Transportation Services exercising some discretion on that particular matter, I'm going to move adoption of the alternate recommendations.
You got this, Rosemary? We'll fix it? Good? Oh, Councillor Campbell.
Actually, if you look at the diagram on page 7 of 7, it doesn't call for that area to be restored to green space.
No, but attachment A does, on page 5 of 7. You'll find that it talks about restore to soft landscaping, that area in front of the door, and it's a little bit difficult to imagine. But you're right, in page 7, if they comply with page 7, it's fine.
Okay, motion's on the screen. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Michael Schreiner's in the house.
Okay.
Yeah, Michael Schreiner's in the house. EY, let's think some questions, we can get him up here. EY 25.8, front yard parking appeal, 33 Ravenel Street in Ward 11, Councillor Nunziata. Are there any speakers on the item? Ravenel? Any speakers? Councillor Palazzo, you want to speak on while you're there?
Brad.
Seeing none, Councillor Nunziata, questions to staff? Seeing none, Councillor Nunziata.
Yeah.
Oh, questions to staff? Councillor Campbell.
Questions to staff on this item? So, judging by the picture, it looks like almost the whole yard has been paved over.
That's correct.
How does that happen?
Most of the paving is totally on private property, and this occurred recently.
This occurred recently. They don't have to come to the city for any kind of approval? when they
Not
do
the
that?
transportation for the area on private property, it's a zoning issue.
Okay, so what we're asking them to do is basically, we're telling them that they have to remove half of that paving, right?
Well, should it get approved, we would like to see the alternate,
Recommendations.
In the alternate recommendation, we want the paving to be changed to permeable and the excessive paving to be removed.
So one of the things I find odd about our bylaws, and maybe you agree, is that the staff recommendation is to deny the request for front yard parking, in which case the status quo would remain, which is totally unacceptable to the city.
In this case, part of the boulevard area would have to be restored. The area on private property, I can't do much
No,
of.
but if we were to adopt the staff recommendation in one, nothing would happen, correct? The property would remain as the status quo.
A portion of the boulevard area will be removed, and we would request barriers to be installed so that there would be no parking taking place. I can't,
If we denied the correct request for front yard parking at this site, if we adopted number one, we still have recourse to go back and tell them to rip up the pavement?
part of it on city
Part of it.
property only,
On city property only?
correct?
Well, so that still leaves most of the driveway, or most of the front yard covered in asphalt.
That's correct.
So I think that's a very peculiar position that city staff, do you not think, no, I don't have a question. That's just my comment, thank you. But I know I'm not allowed to comment until we go to speakers.
Now you're getting the hang of this stuff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Hawley, the question.
Thank you. Oh,
I think it's more of a question for MLS. Further to Councillor Campbell's point, if we adopted the staff recommendation and approve no change, would we be having an MLS issue or a zoning issue where a significant portion of the front yard has been paved?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, so there is a problem. Understood. Thank you.
Any further questions, staff? Seeing none, Councillor Nunziata, speak.
thank you. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to move the alternate recommendation. Yeah.
Okay. Councilor Dundas, Councilor Holly, you here for quorum, I think? Councilor Dundas moving the alt recommendation. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 25.9, front yard parking appeal, 2 Yarrow Road. We have a speaker, Antonio Petrini. I'm sorry? You're not, no, that you're Anthony? Okay. Antonio, sorry. Antonio's not speaking. Councilor DeGiorgio. He's coming. So is Christmas. Councilor DeGiorgio, 25.9. Oh, just, okay, well.
Mr. Chairman, I've met with the applicant, and he's
One
okay
second.
with the, he's okay
Questions of
with...
staff? No questions of staff?
No questions of...
Questions of staff? Seeing none. Councilor DeGiorgio.
Yeah, move adoption of the alternate recommendations. As I say, the owner he's okay with the recommendations being proposed and willing to comply with all the dimensions and whatnot
Have you had a motion?
of alternate recommendations.
Okay, just move the, oh, it's okay. Councilor George, move the alt recommendations. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
EY 25.10, application for fence exemption, 65 Princeton Road. Are there any speakers on Princeton Road? Yes, there are. Bruno Cerduti? Cerduti? Is Bruno here? Not here? Councilor Ford, do you have a deferral motion on 2510?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'll move deferral on behalf of Councilor DiTiano.
Councilor Ford's moving deferral on behalf of Councilor DeChano. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 2511, application for fence exemption, 21 Yorkley Avenue. Are there any speakers on Yorkley Avenue? Yorkley Avenue? Seeing none. Questions of staff?
Sorry, just give me 1 second on that. Just a question.
I'm sorry, Councilor Ford. Sorry. I'm ahead of myself again. Sorry. Okay, motion to reopen 25.10. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 2511 we can't deal with. It's 10:45. Sorry, Councilor Ford. So we are caught up. Now, can we go back to that? We got that up, the motion for Councilor Giorgio on, gonna take a minute?
Mr. Chairman.
Point of order, Councilor Nunziata.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
What happened to Mr. Mayor?
Hmm?
Nothing, go ahead.
I've spoken to staff, so what I would like is I'd like to move that item EY 2538 that we reopen.
2538.
That's the St. Clair and
Northbound, left turn, advance feature St. Clair Avenue West and Old Stockyards Road, Guns Road. Councilor Nunziata is moving to reopen. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councilor Nunziata, the floor is yours.
Yeah. So what I would like to do is I would like to amend the recommendation and delete in when it is expected to be installed rather than that it be installed immediately.
Does the clerk have this?
No, I don't.
Can you repeat
Yeah.
it slowly?
On item EY 2538, the recommendation delete and when it is expected to be installed, the last few words, and that it be installed immediately. And if I may, if you want me to comment on it, this is a traffic light that's at St. Clair and Old Stockyards, which is where we have all the mall and we have, so 2013, there was the traffic department, we did a study, and they approved a turn signal from the Stockyards onto St. Clair going westbound. They approved it. It met the warrants. And we're in 2017, it was never done. So we waited for nothing's been done on it. And so I've spoken to staff, and it should have been done, and they've been dealing with TTC, because that's where the TTC loop is, the streetcar loop and that. So what's happening is all the traffic, it's so congested at St. Clair and the Stockyards that when traffic is coming out from the Home Depot and from Canadian Tire, rather than wait to turn onto St. Clair, they're going straight through and going through the residential streets, which is the subdivision that's there, and we have a park. So we need a turn signal there, and so because it's been 5 years, almost 5 years, the staff is willing to work with TTC and get it done immediately, rather than report back to community council. That's the recommendation of staff. So I'd just like to amend that. Okay?
Okay, so Counselor has made an amendment. Rosemary, you have that? You got it? All in favor? Opposed? Clause amendment, all in favor? Okay, we're all start up again. 25.040 status report 2522, 2542 Keele Street, draft plan and standard condominium application. Councillor DeGiorgio's held the item. Are there questions of staff? Seeing none, Councillor DeGiorgio. My friend,
Chairman.
Councillor DeGiorgio.
I'm basically just, I'm asking that we approve the,
Do you have a motion?
yeah, I do have a motion, I'm sorry.
I know you are.
So that we approve the draft plan.
So, Councillor Giorgio, you know I love you. I have to rule this out of order, my friend.
Again?
Feel free to challenge the chair.
I do challenge the chair, I don't understand why
Councillor
it's out of order.
Giorgio, this motion is out of order. Feel free to challenge the chair.
Why is it out of order?
Rob, do you want to comment?
Chair, I would note one thing right off the top is that staff is not recommending in the report that the draft plan coming in be approved. They say that there will be a further report. This is an information report. They're going to be coming back with a report in the future to deal with the draft.
Well, that's terrific. That's terrific,
Okay,
except
Councillor Giorgio, Councillor Giorgio, please.
The conditions that are put on here, it says approve it in principle, subject to some conditions that can just never be satisfied. They're impossible to satisfy. So those conditions won't apply. But if the councillor does want the draft plan approved, he can withdraw his bump up, and staff could do that at the staff level, as delegated in that. So if we want to approve it in principle, we can, the bump up could be withdrawn if that doesn't happen here.
So what you're saying is they can't meet the conditions, but the zoning was approved subject to conditions.
Just,
I'm saying the conditions are totally unrelated to the draft plan of condominium.
Was the application subject to the old North York zoning bylaw and not the new zoning bylaw? Approved in 2013.
Sir, the amendment that was made was to the old zoning bylaw, and that zoning bylaw.
Right, and it was prior to the approval of the new zoning bylaw, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and all I'm asking is that that one of the conditions be compliance with the old zoning bylaw prior to the approval of the new zoning bylaw.
It's deemed to, bylaw was passed by the board, and it's deemed to comply with the official plan, now, and
It's deemed to comply with everything, right? Because it was approved by the board, it's deemed to comply with everything and anything.
yes,
Okay,
it's deemed to comply, there's no going back and determining whether anything to do with the official plan.
right.
Zoning bylaw is in full force effect.
Okay, well, you're aware
Councillor
that,
Giorgio gives you lots of
I
leniency.
have one last question, Mr. Chair.
Okay, one last.
What happens if the applicant appeals the draft plan approval conditions prior to staff coming forward with a report? Which I can guarantee with 100%.
Well, yes, I understand the date for appealing would be coming up sometime in October,
Right?
late October. They have the choice to appeal to the Ontario Municipal Board, sir, and this would go back to the Ontario Municipal Board for a decision.
Notwithstanding that staff is trying to process it and he's not submitting what they've asked for.
Sir, yes, they could appeal, yes.
Right, so they can drag their heels and take staff, community council out of the question like they did on the original zoning bylaw.
Okay, so Councillor Giorgio, I'm going to rule it out of order. Feel free to do what you like.
Well, I do challenge the chair, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Councillor DeGiorgio has challenged the chair. Should the ruling of the chair be upheld? All in favor? Councillor Doucette, Councillor Nunziata, Councillor Holliday, Councillor Grimes. Opposed? Councillor DeGiorgio, Crisanti, Ford, that loses. You like to
We
speak?
got another chair, we got another member here, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor DeGiorgio to speak.
Well, Mr. Chairman, this is, it's a highly abnormal, irregular, contentious item that was approved by the Ontario Municipal Board. It is the only application that I'm aware of in the last decade, if not more, that was not given the privilege of a statutory community council meeting. the only application, and I've been around for a long time. Now, between now and council, I'm sure staff can give me examples of where applications have gone directly to council and bypassed community council meetings. I'd love to have an example. I've asked for it for the last 2 years. I still haven't received one. That being said, I have great difficulty with applications that do not comply with official plan policies. The official plan policies are very clear. Any zoning amendment, before council can take a position on that zoning amendment, the official plan basically says you must have a statutory public meeting, because the recommendation to council, the position to council, the recommendation has to be provided by community council. Council cannot take a position without having the input of people that are impacted by the application. Yes, you can say, you know what, take it right to the board. Why do we not do all applications that way? Why do not all applications for rezonings go directly to the board? Why do we waste our time processing applications and having community consultation meetings and having statutory meetings? Why do we waste our time when the board can make decisions? The reality is it doesn't happen that way in most cases. It only happens that way in highly irregular cases. So, my motion, Mr. Chairman, is for staff to give me examples prior to the next council meeting of applications of legitimate rezoning amendments, not zoning amendments to lift H provisions. I'm talking about zoning amendments that have changes of use proposed or increases in density. I want examples. One, where community council was bypassed on a situation like that. I don't want to talk about zoning with conditions, lifting H provisions. That is not a legitimate zoning amendment that is subject to a statutory public meeting at community council. And if the application that is embedded in this application is a lifting of an H provision, then that should have been disclosed. Full disclosure. So, give me examples of zoning amendments that are not lifting of H provisions, that are not subject to statutory public meetings at community council before proceeding to the board. Thank you.
Okay.
So that's my motion.
Speakers? So, I don't think the clerk has your motion, so Councilor George, I'm going to try and help you out here. The recommendation is to receive the report. I'm going to move that we send this to council for information. We have an opportunity to get that motion in order and bring it to Toronto City Council. Is that helpful?
That's fine.
Okay.
Except for I want the staff to give me examples.
Okay, so Councilor Giorgio, you need to get that motion written out. It's not fair to the clerks. So if I move receipt here, it dies here. So I'm going to move that we send this to council for information. That'll give you opportunity to get something together. You can move at Toronto Council. Oh.
Perhaps, again, Mr. Chairman, thank you for your assistance. Perhaps you can further enlighten me, because by the time it gets to council, I'm just wondering whether the applicant may have already appealed the conditions to the board.
I don't think we would know that.
I don't know that either. I'm just saying that.
Anyway, you can work on your motion. So I'm gonna move this, otherwise it dies in the vine here. I'll move it to
Thank you.
council for information. You can move that motion at
So
council.
can we hold it down until I write my other motion with respect to getting examples? Hold it down.
That's why I'm doing, you can move that at Toronto. Okay?
Yeah, but I want to move it here so I get it by the time we get to council.
Okay,
Just hold it down for 2 minutes. I'll just write something down.
okay, we're gonna hold it down. All right, so we've got another 5 minutes to go. Anthony, you wanna tell us your life story? No? Speech? Item 2's ready?
Anthony, where did you buy that
Okay,
suit?
sorry. Okay, I think Rosemary tells me we can deal with 25.2, final report, 1780 Lawrence Avenue West, zoning bylaw amendment and plan of subdivision application, There were no speakers. We were waiting to get that motion on the screen. It'll be up on the screen. Is it ready to go on the screen, guys? Guys, ready for the screen? Rosemary? Is it ready for the screen? Oh, okay. Councilor DeGiorgio, I'm going to put you on hold on that other motion for a second. If you could just read your motion here and the intent. This is on two.
Mr. Chairman, the intent of that motion is to basically clarify some inconsistencies between the old North York zoning bylaw and the new zoning bylaw. It basically clear up some technical amendments that I think clarify the intent of the approval. And then there is one condition later on, condition number 4, that relates to the plan of subdivision and some wording with respect to the planning, the approval for the draft plan of subdivision. And what I'm suggesting is that these things have been agreed on with discussions with the applicant. However, I just want to make sure that by the time it gets to council, staff has had an opportunity to look at it and is basically also in support. I honestly do not see any reasons why they would not be in support, but I'm asking that we approve it subject to.
Okay. Motion's on the screen. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Clause amendment. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay. Let's go back and see if we're close enough now. 10:45. Yeah, I reopened it. I already reopened it. Okay, 2510, application for fence exemption, 65 Princeton Row. We already reopened that. Bruno wasn't here to speak, was he? No? Princeton Road, no speakers? Seeing none, Councillor Ford, you were going to defer that till next day.
I'll move defer on behalf of Councillor DiTiano.
On behalf of Councillor Chano, Councillor Ford's moving deferral to next day. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, application for fence, 2511, application for fence exemption, 21 Yorkley Avenue. Are there any speakers on Yorkley Avenue? 21 Yorkley Avenue. Seeing none, we'll bring it to committee. Questions to staff? Seeing none?
Sure, we've got questions to staff.
Questions to staff, Councillor Ford.
Thank you. Questions through the chair. I have just two brief questions. So in the report, it says this existing rear yard fence has climbable elements. What are they?
Councillor, it's going to be the horizontal board construction of the fence. I may add that the applicant has constructed them of a locking channel board. They're just not staggered on top of each other, so it doesn't directly meet the requirements of the bylaw.
Right. And is this common around the city of Toronto, that people are now, this is the new style, and that they're being approved by community councils?
I would say that it's becoming more common throughout the city, yes.
Right. Okay. And in your experience, they have been approved by other community councils and this community council?
I can't speak to other community councils. The main provision in this is if council does choose to accept the recommendation that the fence boards are maintained to prevent warping and any climbable aspect of that.
Right. And then there's the height, which is the bylaws 2 meters, and this is 2.1 meters.
That's correct.
Right. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you.
Councillor Holiday, the question.
Don't go, Alex. Thank you. You mentioned something called Milwaukee Channel. Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so the easiest way for me to describe it, Councillor, would be similar to a laminate type flooring that clicks together. So opposed to the boards just being nailed to the fence, the boards used in this fence construction actually lock in like a laminate flooring type construction in our...
Like tongue and groove?
Yes, exactly.
Great. Do you know what the thickness of the boards are? Are they additional thickness or are they standard?
That I'm
What's
not sure of.
Any idea what the dimension of the board is in the other direction? Like,
That
are
I'm not sure.
any idea how frequent the posts are or reinforcing straps are behind the boards? It's
So-
important.
Yeah, understandably. So based on the information that was provided in my officer going out and taking an inspection, the posts met the requirements under 447, which is our fence bylaw for spacing.
Yep.
And there were no climbable elements on the backside, which would be the neighboring fence.
Okay, what about horizontal reinforcement straps on the backside? So between post to post, sometimes people put straps on the back to keep the boards from warping.
Correct. To my knowledge and the information provided, there are none.
Okay, so the post would be what spacing, 8 feet nominally, like wide?
Yeah, 8 feet
Okay.
apart.
Great. Thank you very much, that's helpful.
No worries. Thank you.
Any further questions? 16 Wesley? 16 Wesley? No, I'm kidding. Okay, seeing no further questions. Speakers, Councillor Ford to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to be brief. This item was considered last month, and we ended up deferring it to this month's cycle. After having further conversations this month, yes, I do. Sorry about that. I will move item 2 of the staff recommendation to grant the fence exemption as displayed on the overhead here. In the last month, I have had conversations, further conversations. It is my understanding and through research that these are not uncommon in the city. They are becoming more common. More of our residents are looking to have this type of style around their swimming pools. Other community councils have accepted this and approved it. So has this community council. It isn't uncommon to have this. So, that being said, I am moving to grant the exemption and take any questions if anyone has it.
Any further speakers to the item? Councillor Holiday, sorry, Councillor Holiday, do you want to speak? Yeah, go ahead.
I do. I am only going to make the comment, I'm not going to support it, although I appreciate the work of Councillor Ford. I have one concern on this, and if the homeowner's listening, I hope they consider putting additional reinforcing straps on the back, because what happens with these boards, even though they're tongue and groove, is they warp over time, and they open up larger channels to get little toes into. So by putting reinforcing straps on the back, that holds the boards together. I can't suggest a space or anything like that, but I hope they will do that. If it was my house, that's what I would do, because I wouldn't want anyone to be hurt.
You speak? Speaking? Councillor George, speak?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor George, speak.
Yeah, first of all, I would support the application. I think the condition that Councillor Holiday is proposing is quite good and reinforces the intent of the council to ensure safety. So I would support if the wording can be, sort of paraphrased to incorporate what.
Councillor Ford's indicating he'd consider that friendly, so just Councillor Ford said he considered that Councillor Holiday's. So is that a request or it'd be a direction?
I believe the applicant would be happy to do that, and in consultation with my office, will work with the applicant.
Okay, so we request that the application, they would put reinforcement straps on the back of the fencing, correct? We direct that they put reinforcement straps satisfactory to MLS on the back of the fencing. With that, you good with that, Rosemary? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 2512, application of fence exemption 32, All Heart Drive. Are there any speakers on All Heart Drive? All Heart Drive? Last call.
Mr. Chair, can I? Mr. Chair, I don't believe there's any other speakers. The property owners are here, but I'll be handling it on their behalf.
They're lucky.
Yes.
Questions of staff? Questions of staff, Councillor Campbell.
Questions of staff. So this is a corner lot, and we have a picture. It's generally not particularly well illustrated, but on the last page there's a photograph, and I can't tell what's in behind the fence. Is there a driveway in behind a fence? Because clearly this is a visual obstruction.
There is a driveway.
There is a driveway right there. So somebody backing out of that driveway cannot see a child or an adult or anybody coming along because of the fence. Is that correct?
They have set back, it's at an angle, the back portion
But how much?
is at an angle. It has to be 8 feet from the corner back.
So the fence at the back end is 8 feet from the driveway?
No, the corner going in at an angle
Yeah?
is 8 feet back.
I don't get it. So if a car, so the driveway, so this is a side yard. There's a house next to it, which I can see a roof.
That's correct.
And somebody pulling out of that driveway, is there a visual blockage or impairment to them seeing somebody going toward that driveway? Because it clearly, it looks to me like there is a,
It is angled, it is a poor picture, the way it is, but it's angled. If you look at the last page
yeah, I'm looking at that.
of the drawn diagram,
Oh, the drawn diagram. Oh, that. Okay, oh, I see, okay. Oh, I see.
so it is angled for the sight line.
Okay. And so if somebody's traveling along on a bicycle on the sidewalk, does that give enough, is there enough opening there for somebody to see somebody riding along on a bicycle?
Well, that's
Is
what
there a way of determining that?
it's within 8 feet. The bylaw reads, going in from the corner, we take the measurement at 8 feet in.
Okay. So next question is, and again, I guess I can see, this house has no side yard on the other side. Is that correct?
It appears to be a driveway on the other side.
Right. So basically, this is, because it's a corner lot, I live on a corner lot, this is the only backyard that they have, right? Okay, thank you. That's my question. Thanks.
Councillor Crisanti, to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your questions, Councillor Campbell. Yeah, absolutely. So, and I'll be speaking, so I think we're good. Thank you, Joy. Yeah, so I visited this property several times, and with the inspector as well, and of course with my constituents who are both here today. And so this is new to them, and you know, they've got a beautiful property. It's very well maintained. This is one of those situations where the bylaw doesn't fit the property. Their only yard is the side yard. This is their rear yard. And they've done an excellent job in building this fence. It's done professionally, and they've considered all the potential problems that may arise in terms of visibility. So the area of the fence where Councillor Campbell pointed out is, it has been adjusted, it has been angled, and there are no sightline issues anywhere that anyone could be concerned about. Also, we walked the property with the inspector, and the inspector agreed that he had no concerns in terms of any obstruction or visibility issues, whether you're a pedestrian and so on. And a cyclist, of course, should be on the road, not on the sidewalk. That's where they should be, and hopefully following all the rules. And so this is important for them for safety, security, and for privacy, of course, because it is the only area that they could enjoy on that side. The opposite side is a driveway, so this is the only area that this family could enjoy in terms of a private rear yard. So on that basis, I would ask my colleagues' support. I'm going to move recommendation number 2, that will allow them to maintain the fence. So that's the second recommendation, granting the application for a fence exemption on 32 Allhart.
Okay.
All right, thank you
Further
very much.
speakers? Seeing none, the recommendation has been moved by Councillor Crisanti. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Application fence exemption, 40 Rakeley Court. Are there speakers on Rakeley Court? Yes, sir. Please come forward. Good morning. Welcome, sir. Please state your name, and you have 5 minutes.
Good morning. My name is Gabriel Fain. I'm speaking on behalf of the owners of 40 Rakeley Court. The owners would like to build a 6-foot-high fence along Eglinton Avenue and along Rakeley Court for this property. It's a 19-acre lot, so it's a very large property. and they're concerned about safety issues, and that's why they want to build a 6-foot-high fence. The other issue is that there's a lot of garbage being thrown onto the property, so a 6-foot-high chain link fence would deter people from throwing garbage onto the site. So I kindly request that this exemption to the bylaw be granted.
Questions? Seeing none? Thank you, sir. Any further speakers to the item? Seeing none, questions to staff? Seeing none, Councillor Holliday.
Thank you, Chair. I have a motion on this. I'm going to refer this back. Just give Rosemary a second. Right. I'm going to refer it back to staff and request that a meeting be set up. Unfortunately, with these processes, the councillor is made aware through the reporting about a week in advance. So we don't get a lot of opportunity to spend some time to sort out this file. Throwing a 6-foot fence around the property, and I know the property, and I know the garbage that's on the property, is a significant undertaking, and I need to spend some time exploring that. So I'm just going to ask the clerks or someone if they could pass my card to the person that spoke today, and suggest that you get in touch with me, but I also need to spend some time with the bylaw people to get some of the more details in this file. Thank you.
Okay, any further speakers? Seeing none, the referral motion on the screen. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Application for fence exemption, 611 McRoberts Avenue. We have speakers. Ricardo De Silva. Mr. De Silva here? No. Jean Milligan? Good morning, Ms. Milligan. Welcome. Thanks for your patience today, and you have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Can I hand stuff out before my 5 minutes start?
Sure you can. Yep. Need to reset.
Thank you so much. My name's Jean Milligan. I'm here on behalf of my husband and myself, Timothy Eaton. We're the owners of 611 McRoberts Avenue. We're here to ask that the fence exception for our temporary fence that we've put along our side south property line along our private drive be supported. That fence was installed due to extensive construction that was occurring at our neighboring property south of us at 609 McRobert Avenue. And for health and safety and security reasons, we installed this fence. We were asking that there be a slight amendment be considered for the second recommendation provided by the staff. My husband would be absolutely thrilled to remove this fence. We asked that the fence be allowed to remain until all the construction at our neighbor's property at 609 McRoberts Avenue be completed and is in full compliance with city bylaws and all the approvals, any kind of variance approvals. So that's our request. I gave you some pictures, bigger pictures for those who are, like me, visually impaired, and I also provided a document that shows the steps of why we ended up with this fence. Bottom line, back in September 11, 2012, our neighbor installed his own private fence, so that was on his property. That's the first picture, and if you look on the Google Maps one, August 2014, you have a bigger picture of that. So that was fine, and life was grand when we had that fence. It was very clear what the boundaries were. When in 2014, he got approval to do renovations on his house, he then took the fence down so that he could gain access to his north wall via our private driveway. We experienced a lot of problems with this in the sense that our driveway was blocked, it was occupied by him without any kind of notice or permission from us. He never told us when construction was happening, so we ended up getting several punctured tires from screws because we didn't know what was going on. We couldn't get into our driveway. So in order to try to mitigate that, I reached out to Toronto Police and we attended a mediation session through the St. Stephen's Community House. In that mediation session, there was a contract signed where the neighbor agreed that he would advise us in writing by email when he would be accessing our property or when he would be doing any kind of construction that might affect our property or cause any kind of damage. He never honored that contract, and it got to the point that we had to call police in to get actually access to our property. He would take over our driveway, our private driveway, and he would not leave. So I have police reports to support that. I have the contract from the mediation services to show what's been done. So in order to help address that issue, we installed a 6-foot temporary fence. It's your typical modulock fence that goes around construction sites. So that was a 6-foot fence. That helped a little bit until on December 10th, 2015, the owner of the property, what he did is he actually covered one of our security cameras from behind the houses, hopped over the fence, pushed our fence over and caused damage, and we caught him on another camera leaving the scene. We called the police. He was charged with mischief under, and then he paid a restitution for the damages. Because he pushed over the fence, we then ordered an 8-foot fence so that we could connect the fence to our actual house so that there would be no chance of it being pushed over. So that is the fence that is currently in place. If he hadn't have pushed over the fence, it wouldn't be there right now, but from a safety and security perspective, we needed to connect it to the house so that pushing over wasn't an option. In regards to the construction, he currently has, he went to the Committee of Adjustment on September 7th. He has for 6 variances, and the committee unanimously and completely refused his application for any of the variances. He also has 4 outstanding orders to comply with city building, construction without 2 constructions without permit, and 2 works not in accordance. So we anticipate that there will be still significant construction at the site. For those bases, we ask that please, we would like to at least maintain this temporary fence until that construction is done so that we can protect our property, maintain the health and safety.
You have a question, Councillor Campbell?
Well, what a nightmare.
Okay.
So what kind of construction remains to be done? Because on the last page, you have a photograph of the house.
Yes.
That he's, and so what are the implications of these construction without permit to the rear yard and so on? What is the city telling him that he still has to do that necessitates the continued structure?
He has, and I have the notice here from the Committee of Adjustment. He has 6 variances that he has to comply with. Well, he sent it to appeal the Toronto, the TLIB. So the notice of decision, so that his front lot is too far back. His back lot is too far back. His eaves, on the north side of our property, this is what our biggest concern on. Once his eaves are installed, it will be on 0 meters on our property line. So it will be right on our property line. Maximum building permit is 17 meters, but he's asking for it to be 21.36 meters.
So, okay, I don't need to know all the details. So if he's not granted these exemptions, he has to make modifications to the house?
Yes.
Or start all over?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Councillor Holly, you had a question.
Thank you for speaking to us. Sometimes reading the reports, this aspect didn't come out. As I was looking at this fence thinking, why would somebody put that up? Can you tell me, is this an owner-occupier, or is this a builder that you suspect might be selling the property to someone else?
He considers himself a contractor.
Does he live there?
He lives there with his family.
Okay. You don't have to answer this because I want to be very respectful of your, you may have a desire for privacy, but I noticed there's some tall hedges in his front yard, which makes it very difficult for you to back out of the driveway. Have you ever considered, and like I said, you don't have to tell me, but if you ever considered filing a 311 complaint on that?
I already have.
Okay.
I have, and he was actually, even in regards to the front retaining wall that he has, that he's actually built, these aren't the up-to-date pictures on it. Oh, I guess you can see it on that main one.
Yeah.
But it's totally, there's no setbacks, and it's inhibiting us from getting in and out of our driveway. He was supposed to fix that last week, and no work has been done.
Okay, and so you went through mediation, the mediation came to a point, and it sounds like the individual's not been adhering to what was agreed in the mediation.
He said, we're adults, we don't need the contract.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for speaking to us.
Councilor Palazzo, the question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First and foremost, Ms. Milligan, good to have you here. Thank you for coming down. I spoke to you on Saturday at my constituency office, and so I have a few questions for you for the benefit of my colleagues. There was a fence there before, right?
Yes. So yeah.
That was a wooden fence.
There was a wooden fence that he installed in September 2012.
Was that a divisional fence or a privacy fence? Was that a private fence or within the property line?
No, that was on his property, and he installed that because there's a little, I guess a 2 feet little walkway between the house, and we used to put our garbage can there, and he didn't like that anymore. And as soon as he told us that, we stopped doing it, but it wasn't enough. He put the fence up. So that was perfectly fine. So and you can see in that first picture on 2014, August 2014, that's the fence that he did, that he put up.
Great. So I understand that there is a number of notice of violations or also compliance with the building department on this property.
Yes.
And given the ongoing construction that's taking place, and that somehow is impacting your quality of life, and that's why
Yes.
you are bringing this kind of action and asking for this exemption.
Yes, please.
It's mainly in terms of health and safety. Would that be fair to say that?
Absolutely, yes.
So the safety and security of your property is what led you to build up this fence?
Yes, so if you see the second picture of August 2015, again, we just had the 6-foot fence, so that's just the first fence that we put in. And we put that up, yes, just to help manage access to our property, to figure out when screws are gonna be in our driveway, be able to, at least manage that aspect. So it's completely for safety and security.
Great. If I was to move recommendation number 2, would you be okay if this fence was going to be temporary? So the wording within that recommendation is changed to a temporary fencing as opposed to the way it is that can be there forever?
We very much consider it temporary fencing. It's quite ugly, so.
So that's what you're asking at this point?
Yes, yes.
For something temporary?
Yes, so
Great.
temporary, absolutely. We just ask that it stay there until the construction is done from a safety, security, health and safety perspective.
Fantastic. Once again, thanks so much for coming down.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. See no further questions. Any further speakers to the item? Any further speakers to the item? Seeing none, question to staff. Councillor Campbell.
I don't know if there's anybody here from Toronto Building. Right in front of me. I didn't know.
New?
That. I don't know. These people don't have nameplates on, and anyway.
You should meet with them once in a while.
As you know, there's not a lot of stuff.
Nothing going on in your ward. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Campbell.
So the question is, if you can sit down, by the way, actually.
Thank you.
The question is, I'm just helping you out there, Councillor Grimes. If a building is built not to specifications, as this appears to have been, what recourse does the city have to make them make changes, real physical changes to the building?
Through the chair, so on this particular application, I just received verification that the owner at 609 was issued orders to comply under the Building Code Act, a deviation of approved building permits that were issued. So, I mean, the process starts off where we issue an order. It has timelines. We try and get cooperation from these people. If they continue to build and disregard the order, our next step would be a stop work order. And then from there, we could ask for fines. We're kind of at a, we're also waiting if there's approvals from the Committee of Adjustment. So it's not an easy task, but we do a form of enforcement, and we will issue a stop work order if we see nothing's happening.
No, we don't want you.
Okay, I'll ask you some questions after the break. Thank you.
Councillor Holly, the question.
Thank you. I think it's an MLS question, but it's concerning about the rights of access to adjacent property owners.
Good point.
Could you just elaborate for everyone's benefit? I know that when homes are spaced close together, or properties are spaced close together, and there's very, very narrow space between properties, I think we have a bylaw and a process that the owner wishing to do work can go through a process to get access to a neighbor's property to do the work. Could you confirm or elaborate what that is?
That is correct. It's the right of entry permit.
Okay. So what's involved in the right of entry? Can you just do it, or do you actually have to go through some steps?
There is a process, but the right of entry is not for new construction.
Okay.
It's to repair or maintain existing.
Okay.
It is not for new construction.
So just for the benefit of the person that spoke to us, what can they expect from the city over time that if this building stays and that neighbor needs to paint the wall or clean the eaves troughs, will they receive notification, or is there an onus on that owner over there to go to the city to get a permit to do the right of entry, or can they just show up when they feel like it and start working on their driveway?
Well, if somebody were to show up and start working on your driveway, it would be trespassing, which would be a policing issue.
Yep.
If the property owner wanted to access the neighboring lot to do repair work, they would have to submit an application for a right of entry permit. That would be reviewed by our department. A security deposit would have to be in place, depending on how much high profile or low profile, how much work is being done and the extent of the work being done. And then we would go back after the work is done. In a high profile, it's even after a year, just to make sure that there's no damages. We hold the security deposit.
Good.
And we take extensive pictures before the work is done. Sometimes, if it's a condition, we'll have an officer there during construction, that period, and then afterwards. So we try and document clearly through photographs before, during, after, and then we go back if it's high profile after a year.
And the applicant pays a fee?
There is an application fee. I believe I think it's $200. I'm not sure on that. But it's the security deposit that we hold.
Of course. So the homeowner that spoke to us today at 611 should be aware of her rights, that if that person needs to go into the driveway, they need to follow a process, and we're prepared to catch and work with that process.
If she does come home and they're on the property right there, it would be a policing.
That's
She would
a
have to call
policing
the
matter.
police for trespassing.
But the following comment is well, you can come on the driveway, but go see City Hall and get a permit to do so because there's a process.
That's correct.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Seeing no further questions. Do you have questions? No. You sure? Sure you didn't want to speak? A question, Councillor Palacio.
Two buildings. With regards to
Tim, this is for you. Tim?
to the comments that were made by the deputant with regards to ongoing construction next door, is there any conditions that you know that need to be met by the Committee of Adjustment when the application was approved? I believe last year, the first application. And if so, can you, in terms of the height of
I'm unaware of that right now, but we can look into that. There's obvious deviation of approved drawings, so if that does not comply with zoning, then back to the Committee of Adjustment, or you alter the construction to comply.
how long can you have or a person have to comply?
Well, the orders are fairly standard, typically 20 working days to, the order initially would say we've been to the site, there's a deviation, apply for a permit, right? So, this is the steps that we give them, apply for a permit. If the permit application was received, let's say within the 20 days or shortly thereafter, we step back because they have done what we've asked. Then it goes through the plan review process. So let's say we do a zoning review on a revision building permit application, we find out he's too high or too close or too long, then they would have to make an application to the Committee of Adjustment. So those processes add up, you know, measured more in months than in weeks.
Great. So at this point, there are notice of violations and orders of compliance in place for the next door.
That's correct. Currently, we are monitoring it, and we've issued orders.
Thanks so much.
Councilor Plato to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to move the second recommendation. And actually this would be a temporary fence exemption that I'm asking for, as well as for municipal licensing standards to report in years' time in terms of any progress on what's taking place there.
Any further speakers to the item? Seeing none, Councilor Palacio's motion's on the screen. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Clause amended. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
EY 25.15, application for fence exemption, 34 Sir Williams Lane. Are there any speakers on Sir Williams Lane?
Nope, he's gone.
Does anyone live in Ward 4?
This is a-
Councilor Campbell.
I'm gonna
Questions
move-
of staff?
No questions of staff. I'm going to...
Questions of staff, Councilor Holiday.
I was going to move deferral to the next day.
Oh, never mind. Councilor Campbell's moving deferral the next day. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 25.16, application for fence exemption, 22 Summerfield Crescent. We have speakers. Robert Salvietta. Good morning, sir. Welcome. Thank you for your patience. You have 5 minutes, sir.
I'm a little nervous here, so...
Don't be nervous.
I built a fence with my neighbor 10 years ago, and I assume he's the one that made the complaint, but I don't know. I don't see anybody here I recognize.
Okay.
So obviously, they weren't too concerned enough to put their time into this. The reason is, it was built for security. I live at the end of the road, facing the highway wall at the 427, and it's quite quiet down there, but there's always people parking in the corners. And then we had a robbery last year, November 11th, and part of the reason the fence was built originally is because the neighbor is he's a homeowner that rents houses out, and over 20 years, I've been there 21 years, that house has been empty sometimes 2 years at a time. So I've had all kinds of issues with people going down the side of his house, breaking into my yard, stealing things, stuff like that. And I have a hot tub back there, so I thought a little bit higher fence would help somebody from jumping the fence to get to the hot tub, even though it's locked, but still. And generally, that's the main reason why it was put in. So I don't know what happened. There was never an issue before, but I got citationed on that day. And that's about it, really.
Okay, thank you. Questions? See none, thank you, sir. Questions of staff? See none, Councilor Holiday.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. If you could put the motion on the screen. So, again, with the fence exemptions and the process that we have, I don't get a lot of runway to spend time on this to sort out what's exactly happening. I have been by your house a couple of times, actually, and seen from the street, but not the backyard. So I'm going to refer this back to the manager, ask for some additional information, and I'm going to pass the clerks my card. I wonder if you can give me a call, and we'll spend some time on this and see if we can sort something out.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
So the referral motion is on the screen. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. I think we have Councilor Palacio's motion. We need a motion for 25.41, St. Clair Gardens Business Improvement Area Proactive Enforcement Measures. Motion to introduce on the agenda. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councilor Palacio, my friend.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to move the recommendations that are before you. And on this, actually, what would be ideal to do, to have? We have a couple of occasions that have become extremely problematic to the community in terms of illegal activities at night, in terms of excessive noise, in terms of alleged drug dealing, and so on. So the community is very disturbed with what's happening there. This location at one point, it was known as Tropical Desires, and they were at 362 Old Weston Road. Ever since they moved to 1776 St. Clair, it has become a nightmare to the residents there. So what I'm planning to the purpose and the intention of these recommendations is to bring some sort of coordinated effort between municipal licensing standards, the Toronto Police Service, and the Alcohol and Gaming Commission, and and I'm hoping that a number of charges that have been laid hopefully will translate into some convictions. If that's the case, I will be bringing a notice of motion to council, and that will be the evidence that's going to be needed by our legal staff, perhaps to take whatever action, even in terms of revoking the license. So that's the intention of this communication, is to ask our city staff, to ask our Toronto Police Services, to request the alcohol and gaming to start working together on this one, and hoping that we'll get something that can be enforced at the end.
Councilor Palazzo, would you consider friendly number 1 to change, do you have a direct in here somewhere?
No, it's request. It says request.
It says request. What did you say?
It's in order.
It's,
Make sure.
yeah, the request. Yeah, you can request. I thought it was a direct. No, it's request. Okay, I'm sorry.
So
It's
the
request,
actual
and
request and
it's both requests.
what I was hoping to have is one single recommendation, and I was speaking to the clerk, if we could have one single recommendation, is requesting the Toronto Police Services, the municipal licensing standards, in conjunction perhaps with the alcohol and gaming, to do proactive enforcement and to report back to the local community council in the first quarter.
Okay,
So
that's not
that's
what
the
it says
intention of
here,
the
though.
recommendation. I did share that information.
Okay, you're going to combine it? You good with it? Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Okay, 25.40, we're going to come back to that. I was going to move this to council for information, and Councilor DeGiorgio is working on a motion, which I believe he has prepared.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just asking for information to be provided to the next council meeting.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Clausman, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. We're sending this off to council for information. Okay, motion to adjourn. Councilor DeGiorgio? Oh,
Oh, we have another item by Councilor
item.
Palacio. Do we not? A late item?
41?
Yeah, and
Oh, you didn't tell me. What are you reopening? What do you want?
Mr. Chairman, I believe that the item is 2535, if I may. 36.
You've got it on the Blackthorn.
Okay, motion to reopen 2536 endorsement for events for liquor licensing purposes. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councilor Palacio?
Is just to amend the recommendation at the end and report back on any incidents or notices of violation at the next community council meeting of November the 14th, 2017. So for
Okay, you
city
got
staff
that?
to report back.
Well, why are you approving it doesn't say?
Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Motion to adjourn, Councilor Ford? Oh. Geez, I'm in a hurry.
Give someone the bill.
Councilor DeGiorgio, you have a motion to introduce and certain bills.
I thought we were going to get Councilor Mammoliti introduced. Happy to move, Mr. Chairman, that the Etobicoke York Community Council pass and declare as bylaws bills 1123 to 1135 prepared for the October 17th, 2017 meeting 25 of the Community Council.
Shall these bills be passed, declared as bylaws? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councilor Palazzo, you have a motion to introduce and enact the confirming bill.
That the Etobicoke York Community Council pass and declare as a bylaw a confirmatory ability to confirm the legislative proceedings of the Etobicoke York Community Council acting under delegated authority at meeting 25 of October 17, 2017.
Shall this bill be passed and declared as a bylaw? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councilor Ford, once again, motion to adjourn? Carried. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You know what I wanted to ask you is that Sarah, that hairdresser that did the wedding,
No. I don't know who it was.